Hello and welcome to our review show on Loaded Balls, and I'm delighted to be joined by Darragh Cross, Marcus Miskelly and Dromara joint manager Myles Cahill. Myles, Marcus, lads, you're making your debuts tonight, so I know there'll be butterflies in the nerves, but look, hopefully you are settled in nice and quick.
There's not many men make their debuts at 48, so I'm happy enough.
Marcus, thanks very much for coming on.
John, thanks for the invite. I was very surprised to hear from you. Someone must have told you I was a knowledgeable down clubman, did they?
Yeah, and plus you had no game this week, Marcus.
All right, so it's plenty of time.
That's just yes, did you get any games, Marcus?
No, we had no game on Friday, but we trained. And we had a full in-house game, 15-on-15. We got half the minor team down, so couldn't get out, John.
No, that's at least he's got a bit of football. Obviously, lads, there was a couple of cases of COVID this week with teams, notably Longstone Castlewellan game from last week. Teams being cautionary. So there's no game with Longstone or Castlewellan. Obviously, lads, I've seen there's Drummond have released a statement as well with the COVID. You know, it is going to happen, Myles, and I suppose we just have to get on with it and prepare and keep safe.
It is going to happen. It's not just confined to within the Gaelic games, but there are outbreaks in every walk of life at the moment. I suppose from the GA point of view, we're the first sporting body really back. You know, soccer and rugby haven't gone back, so we're nearly a testing board to see, how we cope with it and how we deal with it. In fairness to Dundrum, they put up on their Facebook page that they had a player had tested, or a club member had tested. My understanding was he was a squad member and he wasn't at Dromara on Friday. So from our point, we I suppose continue as normal. We train away. You have to be cautious. You do. I think probably as a manager, we may well say to a couple of players, if they don't feel comfortable, having played Dundrum, if they don't feel comfortable, look, skip out on Monday. The last thing you want to do is, you don't know people's personal circumstances or whatever. So if they feel they want to take Monday off for whatever reason, I think we'll have to work with it. You have to continue a certain amount of normality, but you have to respect the wishes of players and club members, around you, what they want to do. So it's the beginning of it. I think as we come into contact with other teams, it's inevitable. It will happen.
No, and as long as the guidelines are kept and everyone's safe and well, and as you say, the precautions are taken as well, Myles, and no pressures put on players, to return. Hopefully now that's, the GA has been a leading light in the fight against COVID, so long may it last.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll jump straight into your match then, Myles. For you said a good win against Dundrum, but I believe you were under pressure for long spells of that game.
Yeah, it was. People talk about a game of two halves. It was a game of 4 quarters. We started reasonably well. We were confident. We were passing the ball about lovely. Not great conditions, windy and pretty wet. I just think we may be overconfident. We tried to walk the ball into the net too many times. Keeper pulled off two very, very good saves, point blank saves, really top drawer saves. But we were comfortable, and then the water break came, and Ryan McShane rallied his troops, and for 15 minutes they just blew us away. They played very direct football, and we were punished for very silly mistakes that, were very, very innocuous. But 40 seconds later, it was a point. That kind of just a drop ball or a slip ball or something like that. And then we got them in at half time, and look, we regrouped, and I think we hit maybe 1-9 or 1-10, something like that, without reply, and steadied the ship. And then Dromara Dundrum came right back at us the last 4 or 5 minutes, and put us under a wee bit of pressure. I think they scored three unopposed points towards the end to close it out to a point. So it was a great game of football, John. It was, both teams sort of went man to man. Both teams went to win the game, I would say. It was, look, it's a July night. Let's go out and enjoy it. We gave, a couple of young boys debuts and so on. And you're still experimenting and trying to try different things. You're only 2 games into a season. So, look, a win's a win. We have a lot of work to do before he takes St John's in the championship. But it's a work in progress, I would say.
Marcus, on the water breaks, how as a player do you feel, it's something you brought in this year?
Yeah, it was a bit unusual in our first game, John. We actually went in, but went in too slow. We were walking in, and the referee had basically, and the referee was calling us back out, and the players weren't used to it. And then they were going to go. We were nearly going to change ends. As if it was a half time. We hadn't prepared for it. Now, the second water break in the second half, we jogged in hard. Got it. The manager actually, gave a few wee tactical points. Players spoke, and then we were back out again. So by the second half, we were used to it, John. But the first half we sort of weren't.
Myles, as a coach, then how for the water break, is it just to get the boys in quick, and is it motivational or tactical that you're trying to get across?
There's not much tactical work you can do, because Marcus says, if you've a corner back, the far end of the field, by the time he gets in, the referee's nearly calling him out again. I would nearly look at the next time the water breaks on, half backs gather around, half forwards gather around and take the water out to them. Yes. I go one way and Gary goes the other way. I agree with Marcus. We were definitely caught against Dundrum to the point where after the water break finished, we nearly went straight out and lined out like it was the start of a game.
Yeah.
You forget, the players forget very quickly that it's maybe a sideline ball or a free kick or whatever. And people just go and line out very deep and back to where they are at the start of a game. So I don't know is the need for the water break. I wouldn't be a big fan of it, because it definitely killed us. We were going very well, and it took the momentum out, and an opposing manager can settle his team and make some changes, so I wouldn't be a big fan of it.
It actually was a good thing in our game, because we had got on top at that stage, and one of the players just said, lads, we've this game won, just keep the ball and bring them out. To be simple thing like that.
I know why it's brought in is to stop the boys, someone coming on throwing the water bottles at the players, not there to stop the spread. But as you say, maybe a better thing would be, it's not every team you see has as many management involved, you see, where they can run on and do that. You see,
we're blessed with a multi-based management team. We can send 4 managers one way and 6 the other one around. It's really a committee on our sideline.
And plus you have to listen to Husky, so you've got the hardest job. The Mitchells ran Drummond close, and I suppose, with no change rooms or anything, Myles, this is bound to take effect as well, that teams that travel distances have to get into the car park, change, warm up, do their tactics in a open air, and not taking away anything from Mitchell's, but it was a surprise with Drummond supposedly going so well.
Last minute goal, I believe. I think it was a last minute goal to win the game. Drummond are one of these teams that you hear. I don't always buy in it, but you hear they don't travel well. They're very good at home, and then, as you say, they get in a car and they have to head south. They don't like it. I've no doubt, the pitch at Darragh Cross is a difficult pitch to play. The same as Auckland Finn and maybe Breda. They're council pitches, and some players like to go into a change room, out to a field that's fenced in and get comfortable and hit a few balls. So, but Mitchell, surely trainer has Mitchell's. He's not gonna just lie down to these teams. They've nothing to lose. I was surprised it ran so close, but you look at some of the other results in Division 4. and even through the other divisions, they're strange kind of results. You know, you've teams hitting big scores one week and only hitting 3 points the next. But Drummond, look, they're probably happy to get out of Derrylecker with a couple of points and head back up the road. And they play Dundrum on Friday, which will be, you know, a big game. You know, and I'm hoping that Dundrum can do us a favour. But you know, Drummond, when we played them, had big numbers on the line, so they could have maybe underestimated Mitchell's and run out. You know, started with what they perceived to be, you know, maybe a slightly weaker team, or used the opportunity to try a full forward in for the mark, or play two sweepers or whatever they wanted to do. You know, the start of the year.
Marcus, I know Donald Kennedy was missing. Donald, I actually played football with Donald many moons ago. He's still one of the main men there in Drummond.
Still has a great head. His movement is very good. They love him over there. Like, I was seeing a few of their player profiles. Every one of them said that, you know, he's the best player they played with. So he's a great ball winner, and he knows when to lay it off, and he can. I think he got a hat-trick against Dromara, did he, Myles?
He did. He didn't miss. He didn't. Now, one was given on a plate to him, but the other, look, he doesn't miss them. It doesn't matter. He still has to put it in the net. He doesn't run for balls he's not going to get. You know, he's a wily.
He doesn't get into races, if you know what I mean.
He plays the long waiting game, and you know, he came away. I say he was relatively quiet. He came away, I think, with 3-2, but. You know, when he gets a chance, you know, he knows what he's about. You know, he's a hard man to mark.
No, and we'll move on to the next man. He also got a hat trick there at the weekend. Big win for Glastromond. Obviously, they had a couple of, I think, 3 players sent off last week. Conor Harrison, 3 goals against East Belfast are getting a rude awakening now in the down football. Nice.
Yeah, I think. Look, good luck to East Belfast, and you know, they're only starting, and you know, they've gathered players from all around Ulster and further afield. So for them, look, they're only getting going. When these guys, you know, need 3 or 4 months to play with each other, know each other's names, know the character traits and how they play, and is he left-footed or right-footed? You know, they're probably still working that out. And Harrison, I mean, Harrison's a county full forward, so you know, playing a team you know that haven't played together out to mark, you know, Conor Harrison is very difficult. You need to be a well-drilled back six, you know, a sweeper who knows when he picks the ball up, somebody's coming off his shoulder. So, you know, for them, look, they're at the stage where they're probably enjoying themselves, you know, trying to set the culture of the club, trying to get, you know, that feeling around the team bonding and so on. And you know, it'll be a great year for them, you know, and they use it as an experiment. And like, I think they had 50 men training one night last week. Even trying to pick, for a manager coming in, trying to pick, you know, 15 from 50. Yeah. You know, he could well play 15. I mean, they could play 2 full in-house games.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just going to be a period for them finding their strongest team, you know, and building towards next year. And see where they are. And Glastromond, you know, 4-14's a nice score. I saw a couple of Harrison's goals online, and you know, he's not going to miss, the same as a good full forward in there. You know, he's not going to miss them.
Yeah. Marcus, what about East Belfast? Do you know any of the players or any information you have on them? Or
no, I was looking at a few of their team photos. I don't recognise any other players. I went to school in East Belfast, so I thought I might get a few, but none. The only one I would know is the fella who started it up, David McGreevy.
Yes.
Good lad. He actually, I coached with him for under 21s this year. I could actually see him on the 3rd goal. He was marking Harrison. Sorry, the 2nd goal. You could see Bonzo was right up Harrison. He was pointing to somebody, you know, to mark him on the other side.
Yes.
But the other fella, you know, obviously they haven't had a chance to. The other, like, Bonzo's played for London, so he's probably used to, you know, someone else coming in there who knows what they're doing. And he sort of let Harrison go into the next fella, but the other fella had followed his man, and then sure just opened up for him. But I don't know any other players, John.
Yeah.
actually playing their reserves this week. But it must be very hard for a team, you know, whenever he probably doesn't know all their names yet, you know, and they could do with a full season rather than this, you know, short season that they have.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely, and you know what, Shea Kern has big numbers there, and you know, hopefully that they can get a win sooner rather than later, because again, it'll breed a bit of confidence in them.
John, no team is going to want to be that team that they beat.
Yes.
You know, their first win.
Yeah.
And
as well. So Drummond were obviously very up for it.
Yeah.
If they get a full pre-season under them, you know, a good, you know, January, February, March next year, and maybe can get themselves up to Donegal for a team bonding session with Kevin Cassidy or something. But they'll get that culture, and you know, next year will be probably a fair reflection of where they'll be.
No, definitely. I suppose two teams that know each other well, and there's never too much between these two teams, Myles, is Brighton and St. Paul's. St. Paul's actually won this match by a point, but Brighton won the last in the championship last year. Two evenly matched teams.
Yeah, it was a funny result. You know, you're probably looking maybe the weather was bad or the wind or the rain, because I think St. Paul's whacked up 20 points against Ardglass the week before, and Brighton 216 at Glastromond the week before. So, you know, whether the two teams stood off each other, or I have a funny feeling, you know, Brighton on a wet, windy night, it's not the easiest place to go to. And St. Paul's got across the line. Again, St. Paul's are another club that don't have a great reputation for travelling. And again, you know, on a wet night, pulling up in a car park, maybe just leave it to the last minute to get changed and run out, maybe not properly stretched or what. You know, St. Paul's would fancy a run in the junior championship, and again, maybe just using this as an opportunity to stretch their panel and test the fringe players. You know, it's very hard to look at some of these results and think, why did it go from two teams that were scoring for fun one week to, you know, 1, 3, and 5 points?
I seen one of the match reports, and it was the first couple of lines was not a match for the purists. So I think both of them were just happy to get it out of the road. Tell you the truth. Our Glass got back to winning ways against St. Michael's.
Yeah, it's a big win, 4-16 to 2-2. You know, our Glass are, you know, very topsy-turvy the last 3 or 4 years. Can pull off big results, you know, big wins, and then the next week, you know, get beaten by a team you wouldn't expect them to beat. You know, they could you know, beat St. Michael's this week and go to Mitchell's next week and get turned over. You know, it's consistency. That the key thing with our Glass is they need consistency. 3 or 4 wins. I think they stretched maybe 2 or 3 last year in a row, if I'm not mistaken. It's that consistency they need. And they lost their first game to St. Paul's. So, you know, now if they get a bit of consistency, you know, they'll get up and go. And they're always difficult in the championship. Our Glass it's a horrible place to go to. You know,
they'll enjoy with Mick McGee there in full forward as well. I suppose it'll take a wee bit of getting used to playing. You know, Mick back playing with our Glass and boys knowing how you know he wants the ball played them and whatever.
Yeah. I mean, our Glass at home are always difficult. You know, I always find it one of those grounds. I didn't play there that often, but it's a sort of ground you never fancy going to. You know, you get there and it's you know, they're very competitive when they're there, and then again, like I say, they'll put up a big result and go away next week and just not turn up at all. You know,
they'll have a big say in the junior championship though, Marcus, our Glass as well.
Yeah, well, particularly with McGee back, they'll have him at full forward and John Polly at 11, and them two seem to do well. Polly did a lot of scoring, so McGee will certainly help him out. Stephen Rooney in midfield, I think, still going well. So always a dangerous team, John, because they can hit goals.
No, as we see there, that like they are. Division 4, Myles. Then the first 2 games. Is there any standout teams for you that you've heard reports of, or is?
I mean, Drummond were very good. When we played them, they were very good. They were very, very well organised. And I have found in previous years, with Drummond when I was part of the Anaclone management with Justy. We played them in a junior championship or intermediate championship semi-final, and they were just, I always felt they're, the wee bit disorganised. Sometimes the soccer boys come in, very, very good footballers, and it takes away the consistency of the team. But I found last week they were very well organised. They had a game plan. They didn't deviate from the game plan. They didn't. There was no talking back to one another. They were very, very disciplined. Previously, you feel you get into a Drummond player, if you start putting the pressure on them, they maybe turn on each other. Definitely not this time. That they were very, very well organised. I know it's the first game, but they were defensive. 13 men behind the ball, but they've obviously well drilled it, and they counter-attack very quickly, and long balls in, and then they can punish teams. They're fit. So they come down from Division 3 last year, probably like ourselves, want to get straight back up to Division 3. And the fact that no matter what happens, they're going to be in Division 4 next year hasn't seemed to take any wind out of their sails. I think it took a wee bit out of Dromara's sails. We were determined to get back up in Division 3. And because there's no promotion, you think, has that little edge gone? But Drummond seem happy enough to push on and rattle everything in the junior championship, and Dundrum weren't bad at all. I know they were beaten the week before by Cahill, but they weren't bad at all. There were a lot of young players. Some of the older boys have maybe stepped away now, but Drummond were very good. I haven't heard, obviously Glastromond looked good in the little bit of clips that I saw. And if Harrison and at full forward, or if he roams a little bit, they'll do damage. They'll be hard to beat.
How much of a factor do you think that a decision for other players not coming back this year could be the fact there's no promotion out of Division 4, Myles?
Yeah, I think there's some players in a lot of clubs have said, look, okay, maybe there's not a lot to play for this year. The break, 12 weeks or 13 weeks was a long break, and you have certain players that are take it or leave it footballers. While it's on, they're fully committed, but it's not on, they've other things to do. And you maybe feel that in that 12-week period, right across the divisions, other boys went and found other hobbies, bit of running, bit of cycling, and have said, look, I'm just going to do that for the year and not come into a season. For a lot of footballers, the mindset is January to September, January to October, and take those 3 months off. And maybe it doesn't sit well in their training schedule to come into a season in July or June. It just doesn't. It's not what they're used to. It doesn't. Not that it doesn't sit well with them, but it's not. It's hard for a lot of players. John, Marcus could well back me up. They finish the season in October, maybe take 4 or 5 weeks off, and then they're back in the gym doing a little bit back pre-season January, and then you're back at it. Then all of a sudden you go 12 weeks without having that round the football club, kicking the ball, training, and that little bit of bite goes, that little bit of desire, especially if you have children or a family, the call to stay at home is now a little bit louder. It's a little bit easier to stay at home and commit to your family. So I think it has a massive effect. But from what I see around the county, I think Marcus touched on it. They had a full in-house game with the minors. Anaclone are fielding 3 teams this year. For the first time in a long time. I was talking to other clubs of 37 at training, 34 at training. So there's a lot of young boys who are just keen mad to get back in football.
Yeah.
Marcus,
just from your own point as well, Dara Cross, you would have been pushing. You're playing senior championship this year. You would have been seen this year as going for that extra step into Division 1 football. Did it rock you a bit at the start, or how did you set your goals then for the upcoming season?
Do you mean with the lockdown?
Yes.
John?
Yeah.
It was probably hard coming back because there was some players thought there wouldn't be any football, and then there was talk of players doing their own thing. Like a lot of them were doing cycling, a lot of them were playing golf whenever the golf courses come back open. So it was hard to get a few of them out, and then there's no promotion, as you say. So it took a while to get everybody back, but basically as soon as everybody's back, it's been good. And want to do well in the league. Obviously, you want to, like, when the Unreal game came around, we wanted to win it, and it'll be the same tomorrow night with Longstone. And when Championship comes, you know, there'll be a big buzz. You know, there is a buzz there with the committee and that. You're just not seeing everybody at the minute, so you don't know. You can't get that feel of it.
Yeah.
But when it comes around, the players will be delighted and looking forward to giving that a lash, and that'll be a bit of history, you know. So you'll want to be involved in that.
No, brilliant. Myles, we'll go on to Division 3. I suppose that the big result, and probably the result of the evening, was Auckland to Finn drawn with Savo. Savo, of course, not too long ago, were playing Division 1 football and had a big win against Tullish. Fantastic result for Auckland to Finn. I think Shay McCroskey scored 1-2 again, 2 weeks on the bounce now.
Look, we played them last year in the Championship. And the Championship we were favourites for, and look, they're a very good team, you know, very, very good. We played them in the pre-season friendly the week before the league started, and they were just as good. They're very fit. Dolan has them very well organised, and he plays very much to their strengths. You know, the quick men do the running, and the older boys, well, they're not an old team, but the older boys play the football, if that makes sense. They're a very good free taker. And I touched on it earlier. Auckland to Finn is a ground that Savo wouldn't be used to going to. It's a council field. It's not fenced. You know, it upsets you a little bit, takes you out of your rhythm. I've seen boys playing in those kind of fields, and they start looking. There's a man walking his dog, and he looks over there, and that's what happens because they're not used to it. You know, Breda we used to see boys in Breda, and they were looking at people throwing frisbees because things go on that they're not used to. But I wouldn't take anything away from the Finn. They're a bit like Dromara last year. You know, we went into Division 3, we were in Division 3, and we raised our game for the back. We took Anaclone to 2 points, we drew Ballymartin, drew Bambridge, beat Hall, beat Bosco, you know, and the Finn are a decent team, and they have nothing to lose in Division 3 because they're not getting relegated. So it works their advantage. So everything at it, go and enjoy it. You know, try different things. There's no bad result, you know, and Savo maybe underestimated them. Again, could have played a couple of young boys, but the Finn, you know, they beat Taconic well enough the week before by 6 or 7 points. And look, I would put them favourites. That might like to hear it, but I think they should. Favourite tag's not a great tag to have, but you know, I wouldn't like to play the Finn. I wouldn't like to play them because they're for a lot of those teams unknown quantity. You know,
I think they'll feel like they left it behind them last year. That championship.
Yeah.
So,
especially the way they beat us.
Favourites. Yeah.
And Myles, just with Savo, and Keelan Rice is back for them. I think he was in Australia before lockdown and got himself home, and you know, by all accounts he's a county footballer in waiting. I think he's obviously their main scorer now without Pat Haver. He's recovering from a slight injury. So, you know, Savo again, you know, dangerous team. Yeah,
look, dangerous, a wounded animal. You know, I wouldn't like to play whoever they're playing. I'm not sure who they're playing next week. But they'll want to put that result behind them. You know, they'll be disappointed. You know, obviously Pat Haven's not there now. Madine's not back. I know they played a couple of boys who just come out of minors, and quick boys. You know, boys that I would know that would be quick and good footballers. And from what I hear, they just didn't get the ball into them. You know, they didn't. They had the quick boys in the corners and then didn't utilize them again. Whether that was just the game plan went out the window or the Finn had them rattled and the game plan changes, but I'd expect them to kick into gear now next week and then on to the Championship. I'd expect them now to be a completely different entity. You know, this weekend's fixtures are the last fixtures before Championship.
Yes, that's right.
I would expect Savo now to come back and make a statement almost.
Myles, just with the Finn underage as well. You know, amalgamations usually don't work, but it seems to have worked for the Finn. You know, they have a joint team with St John's, but you know, the Finn are getting the players through at minor level, and you know, you can see that the average age is well down this year than previous years.
Yeah, we had a couple in the development squads. We had a couple of boys in the Finn in the under-14s and the under-15s. And amalgamations work if people want them to work, John. I managed an under-17 teams managed between Annacone and Drumgaff, and we won under-16 championship last year. They do work if you know, you don't really treat it as two teams coming together, you just treat it as a team. That's what we did. So with the Finn and St John's, and I think then at minor level it's the Finn, St John's and Dromara. It seemed to work, you know, and if you're pushed the resources where you don't have a lot of children, it can bring those kids on if they're playing with boys, maybe playing in a higher division at underage. But the Finn have always had good youth footballers. It's retention. It's trying to keep them and bring them through into that senior level. But when we played them last week or a couple of weeks ago, I think they had nobody over the age of 26 or 27. I think that was their team they played, you know. So the next, if they get well settled in Division 3 this year and get the confidence up, you know, teams not fancy them at all. No,
and you know, there's the next game we're talking about Shamrocks with, you know, bringing youth through as well. Shamrocks had a good win against Tullalish. Tullalish now have 2 defeats. Apparently Cahill Gorman, ex under 20 for Down was exceptional in this game. Shamrocks seem to be getting things in order, and you know, Marty Rafferty and Gavin Murphy seem to be working their magic up there.
Look, they got off to a very good start last year. You know, they were top couple of teams in Division 3 last year. We played them a couple of times. I watched them a couple of times. You know, Marty, I mean, they're well organised. You know, they are and they're fit and strong. I know they were doing a bit of pre-season last year with Aaron Brannigan. He was doing a bit of strength and conditioning with them, and it was definitely paying off. You know, they had a good win against Clundoff, a good win against Tullalish, and that's sort of like they were last year. And you know, they had a good run, and then towards the end of that run, Annacone had pulled away in Division 3. But nearly Shamrock's position was it. They were going to finish second, third, or fourth in league, and all their attention went to the championship. They had a very good run in the championship, very, very good run. And
I know that, Myles.
I mean,
they beat you in the semi, did they, Marcus? Was it the semi-final they beat us?
Jesus, yeah. Just everything. Well, I would say they deserved it on the day, John. We did not do enough when we were on top. But a very dangerous team on the counter-attack.
Yeah.
I mean, they had Gorman, that boy Gorman you're talking about. He got the goal that day. But then also Jack Hockey and Jody McGovern.
Yeah.
And I think they basically kept those 3 up, and we just didn't sort it out, basically. You know?
They're very well organised from the kick out. They're very well organised. And then, to the credit of the management team, when it looked like they weren't going to win Division 3 and Annacone had pulled away, they just refocused and drilled on the championship. And that's the secret to winning a championship. If your league position is sort of cemented one way or the other by July, you can concentrate and kick on. And you know, we had a couple of good games with them. But yeah, you know, they'll be looking to give the intermediate another rattle.
Well, it's just on that, you know, playing a Division 3 team in the semi-final. You know, that could have been, maybe, did you take the eye off the ball, do you think? You know, it's just human nature probably as well.
There's no doubt when the draw was made, the other side was St John's and Glen.
Yeah.
I've no doubt that there was, you know, boys planning the final and you know, the Monday and all that after the final. But we did turn up on the day, and we worked incredibly hard in the match. We just didn't put them away. We got 5 up, and then I think we thought we're going to put a big score on them. And it instead of managing the game, you know, they then came back and scored that goal, and that goal was a real heavy blow, and we never countered it, John. We never really reacted again, you know, and they kicked on and won the game.
Yeah. No, but it shows a bit of character from Shamrocks as well, and you know, exactly, there'll be a dark horse in that intermediate.
They're the sort of team that will stop a good team, and I don't mean that anyway disrespectfully, but they'll stop a good team playing football.
Yeah,
they'll get them, and they'll harry, and they'll attack and work very, very hard-working team, you know, especially when their backs are against the wall. You know, unless you have them put away by 8 or 9 points, if the lead's only 4 or 5 points, I mean, they're very well organised and dogged, you know, and what they lack in, and again, not disrespectfully, in footballing ability, they have it in passion. I found last year, you know, they'll not lie down, no lost causes.
No,
you know,
Marty and Gavin would be two passionate, Shamrock men, so like they're learning from the best there. Great win for Connacht against Clonabana. I suppose the Connacht sort of they bounced back from a heavy defeat last week, Myles.
Yeah, and for Connacht to go to Bambridge, and when Bambridge is a horrible place to go to, so, you know, but it's you know, it's not a great place. Again, you know, it's hard to go and dig out a win there, you know, and again with Bambridge, if they get off to a start and they win their first 3 or 4 games, then they're like a juggernaut. You know, they'll not, you know, you can't stop them. But if they get off to a slow start, and this year again they've lost their first 2, Shamrocks and then to Connacht, you know, you worry what's going to come down the line. I know that Drumgaff in the championship, Drumgaff had a good win. They really need, you know, for me, they really need a win on Friday. You know, because going into a championship game, having lost 3 league games on the trot, is doubt sets in, you know, and like I say, were we talking here about Bambridge winning their first 2 games, you'd feel confident they win their third and into a championship, and I'm sure Jack Lynch he wouldn't like to see Bambridge winning 3 games in a row. And you know, I've always found that over the years, a Bambridge team winning games is not they're not a good team to play against, but if they lose a couple, you know, the heads drop no matter who the manager is. You know, they find it very, very difficult.
That's Division 3A. Division 3B then, Ballymorton played their first game, and you know, Drumgaff bounced back because they had a defeat the week before. But Drumgaff are a very young, full of running team, Myles, and you know, the 2 shays up front seem to be causing loads of problems for Division 3 teams.
Very, very pacey, and again, Jack has them well organised, and everybody thinks that Jack's going to play a certain style of football, and he's nearly playing the opposite. You know, he's very, very attack minded. You know, and I found last year anyway, I watched Drumgaff 4 times. You know, they play with a lot of freedom. You know, he's nearly like Jack has said, look, I want you to do, you know, A, B, but C and D you do yourself. You know, you go out and express yourself. And again, he's bringing a lot of young people through. And pacey, very, very pacey. A wee bit of discipline last year maybe let them down against Clone. They were in a winning position, and a cheap black card probably cost them the game, you know. But, you know, I know, speaking to Jack, that they were definitely pre-season, they were getting out of Division 3. You know, and when I saw the first result, I was thinking, had that taken the win from their sails, the fact that they weren't going to come out of Division 3, they've bounced back with a big win, and they're a bit more in the tank from what I was led to believe. You know, it was a good solid win.
Yeah.
You know, you don't know how much Ballymorton trained that week either. You don't know how they maybe take a week off or whatever, you know. But again, looking at that victory and the way Bambridge are going, you know, Drumgaff in the championship, you know, should get up a wee bit of steam in it.
Yeah, the Division 3 teams in the intermediate definitely have not had the fear from the bigger teams in Division 2. So be interesting to see, you know, how that goes. Christopher Burden with a bit of baptism of fire here for him. His first game for Addy Call as manager. You know, Leitrim are putting up big scores. Again, you know, Leitrim will have a big say in this intermediate championship as well. Like you've got the likes of Rory McCricket in the back line, Liam Middleton midfield, Pierce Ogue and Conor McCricket. You know, you're naming boys who will be making county players like very shortly.
And they seem to be injury free. I know injuries has cost them the last couple of years. They've had, you know, key players injured at key times, but you know they've had two big wins, 2-18 and 2-17 are very big scores. You know, Paddy Hardy in there and Sean Cunningham were both with Addy Call last year. So obviously there's no Addy Call inside out. Again, we played Addy Call in February and they were in good shape. They had about, you know, 4 weeks of pre-season ahead of us. and they were looking good. And I think they're one of those clubs. Again, I think they went a week without training, or certainly they would have cut 2 training sessions going into that.
Yeah.
And I just worry, was that one of the clubs where that 12-week break has maybe took the wind out of their sails? You know, they were very, very good shape. You know, they were looking really good, and again, a big push to try and get out of Division 3. That was their goal in it. A baptism of fire, yeah. And Leitrim's a tough place to go to. You know, I think it's one of the toughest places to go to. They're always very, very strong there. And once things start to go wrong, or Leitrim will kick on. And that's what they seem to do against Drumgath. I heard, you know, they didn't stop, they didn't make changes, and they just kept pounding and pounding and pounding. As you say, maybe now with 2 good wings, 1 eye in an intermediate, and running the intermediate championship.
Marcus, how surprised were you that Leitrim find themselves in Division 3? Whenever you name the players there, like, you know, that's only 4 of the players. You know, every line has a top quality player.
No, I was surprised they went down last year. They just probably left it too late. But you know, the forwards that they have, you just look at Leitrim as a Division 3 team at the minute. You know, I would still see them as a Division 2 team. They're probably even more fancied for the championship, because they would have been obviously targeting coming straight back up, and now they don't have that focus. So everything will be getting into the championship. A lot of tradition there. Their young players will want to have them back up, you know, straight away. So yeah, I was surprised they went down last year, John. I thought they'd saved themselves. We actually were the team that beat them that night to put them down.
Right.
And they should have beat us. They should have beat us that night. But again, you don't put a team away, and we hung on there and eventually beat them. But I would fancy them for the championship, John, along with probably Enrique. You know, they'd be my 2 picks for the intermediate.
No.
I think what Leitrim bring into the Division 3, and Anaclone probably had the same last year when they dropped down from 2 to 3, was they still have a Division 2, or in Anaclone's case, maybe Leitrim. Anaclone had, you know, 18 boys who played Division 1 football, county football, and like I've seen the boys on a Saturday, Benny and Gary and these boys back in the gym doing their recovery sessions, doing that. And Leitrim will have that Division 2 mentality that, you know, as soon as the game finishes on a Friday night at 8 o'clock, you know, they're back focused on the next week, focused on their recovery, focused on, you know, whatever they have to do that night, eating properly, you know, focusing on training. And that's, you know, you can see there's a big gap between what's perceived as a bad Division 2 team and a good Division 3 team. You know, Leitrim are in Division 3 and comfortable, you know.
It's probably the tide around them and Savo. Like, you know, I'm really looking forward to that game in the intermediate, just to see, you know, where the 2 teams are up. Yeah, big game.
Big game,
you know,
yeah.
Two cracking 4 lines, and so it'll be interesting to see. Right, man, we'll move on to Division 2 then. We're getting through this rightly. Obviously, 2A was decimated by the COVID cases, so it was on to 2B. And raked, good win over Breda, and Marcus, I suppose it's a, you know, you're travelling from Belfast down to the Kingdom there. You know, would that have a factor? Did you find yourselves, you know, whenever you were going up the far places, that you know, it does take you a wee while to get settled?
I don't know. Never for us. We travel pretty well. We actually like, you know, going up there. Now Newry would be different. We always hated going to the likes of Bosco and that. But going there, you know, you need to get there early. Have a walk about the field. But I just knew, looking at that game, that I fancied Enrique. I thought they were going to want to bounce back after our game. Also, talking to Bundy a couple of weeks ago, and you know, he says they have a lot of players, but they've lost 2 key men in Connor Francis and Owen Costello. And it doesn't really matter who you're bringing in, you're not going to replace them 2. And they're the sort of boys you'd need to go and win up in the Kingdom.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. As you said, Kingdom will be very, very strong, Myles, and you know, to be everyone's tipping them now to be one of the favourites for this intermediate.
Yeah, and it's probably a title they don't want. They don't want. Nobody wants to be favourites, but they probably are, along with Leitrim. You know, I was surprised at the first game, the Darragh Cross. It was a fairly, 2-12. I think it was 2-12 to 9 or 10 points, and I know that was the bye game, if I'm not mistaken. It wasn't part of the league, and they maybe just took it at that, and then now they kicked in. Their season started last Friday, and Breda, Bundy has had Breda going very well last year, very well organised. But as Marcus says, you take 2 or 3 key players out of that, they're very hard to replace. And they lost Davidson a couple of years ago, and he was hard to replace, but they seem to have got on top of that. But to take 2 or 3 out, but Breda had a big win the week before.
They drew with Patrick last week. Yeah.
They drew. So again, with Breda, it's consistency.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's one thing Jody got with them. He started to get a little bit of consistency, which I felt Breda maybe didn't have for a couple of years, and he got them winning 3, 4, 5 games in a row. And if they get back to that, they'll be a difficult team to play in the championship.
Yeah.
That people will be looking forward to it.
Marcus, how did you find the friendly game then, or bye game, or
It was just like a normal league game,
right?
And it was like the first game. Do you know what I mean? Where there's always a wee bit of nerves before it.
Yes.
And it was flat out, John. There was no taking it easy. It was as physical as any game we've playing. And Kingdom were taking it very serious. We took it serious. But it was good to win it. Good. It doesn't matter. Like, we come off cellar.
Yeah.
We were delighted to win the game.
Mm-hmm.
I think they had played a couple. They had played a couple of games. That was our first game. So,
right.
There was no. I don't think the bye game matters. I think every club just wants to win.
Mm-hmm. Would there be any players that impressed you, Marcus, for the Kingdom?
I think in midfield, Conor Clark. I'm not sure if they're using him right, but anytime he did, go into our half, he was a threat.
Yeah.
Ronan McAlinden and Declan Doyle were their men to hit, and they seemed to interchange.
Mm-hmm.
That was they were their main, and I tell you what, they look for they're trying that mark.
Yeah.
And I've sort of the lads who can, do like to field the ball.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think they were trying things. I would expect their team to change. Not say after our game that the management will work a few things out and try a few new things.
Yeah.
So,
have you been practicing the mark?
No.
Marcus,
Well, our management has set up a few drills, but like I noticed in that our game the other night, they were a bit more calling the mark.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They were winning the ball, but then they were landing and being surrounded, and they weren't putting their hand up. So it's probably something that we could do a wee bit better on.
Mm-hmm. Myles, as a coach, then how do you, is it hard to replicate in drills and that, and trying to get into the psyche of the players?
I'm not a big fan of it. I think that it's an overly complicated rule for what is relatively a simple skill and catch the ball. We played Dundrum. Dundrum called the mark, I think, on 4 occasions where it went into the full forward or corner forward. He'd won the ball and he was 1-on-1, and he stopped and called the mark. And all 4 times when the boy kicked, the player kicked the ball, he was inside the 45.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was a 1-on-1. The corner forward has a 1-on-1. I don't want him stopping. I want him taking the ball and taking the man on. And the 4 times they stopped, the hand went up, and Gregory McGrath was refereeing it, and he was perfectly positioned every time, and says no, the guy was inside the 45, and they squandered opportunities. And I think that the problem is that for a fullback coming out, a fullback catches the ball, goes up with a full forward, catches the ball clean. Maybe there's a bit of niggle in the air, a bit of, moves the hip or whatever. The referee blows a whistle. The fullback thinks he's been pushed in the back. You know, now I was talking to a referee from Tyrone, and he was saying if a fullback comes out and catches the ball clean, but he's pushed in the back by a full forward pushes him in the back, he lands on the ground, the referee blows the whistle that indicates it's a mark, but the fullback may well think it's a foul because he's been pushed in the back. This is the difficulty. He then thinks he's time to take the free. The referee from Tyrone told me that the mark overrules the push in the back. So he's called the mark. It's more important than the push in the back. And the fullback doesn't know then, is the foul? Does he slow it down? Does he, you know, it's too complicated for boys to understand the process of it.
Yeah.
I think the referees are refereeing it to the letter of the law and probably doing a good job. I think it's the players aren't 100% sure. Do they have 4 seconds? Do they have 15 seconds? As a fullback, do I nail the full forward? You know, it's that the midfield mark is simple. You catch it, you put the hand up. That's okay. But against Dundrum, they were obviously trying to work it, but they played the ball in too close and squandered a couple of opportunities.
Marcus, as a full forward, have you changed your game anyway to incorporate the mark?
Well, we played a friendly in February, and a ball went into me, and I stopped to take the mark, and the fullback stopped as well. But because I didn't put my hand up, the referee then blew me for over carrying, and free out. Do you know what I mean? So it's probably just getting all the technicalities of it. I personally like winning your own ball and playing on.
Yeah.
You know, like you think of Mickey Linden, these boys, they were winning that ball, but that was only part. That was the first bit of that was the first job done. They then had to get up, shrug their man off, and make something happen. Like I think is I've heard that said. It's just catching the ball. You know, I actually think that there's been too much brought in, to be honest. Too many rules at once.
Yeah, I agree.
I only learned recently that if the keeper kicks it out to your cornerback, the cornerback can't give it back to your keeper.
That's right. Yeah.
But the cornerback could give it to the fullback, and then he can give it to the keeper.
Correct.
But I'd no idea that. It was only announced in our team talk before the Unrake game, basically.
Yeah.
Don't give it back to the keeper.
It's very hard. And then we forgot about the sin bin. I heard in the game the other night that a fella was black carded, and the other team sent a boy on for him. Do you know what I mean? Whenever that team should have been down to 14 for 10 minutes. Yeah. And then the other team realised after about 5 minutes what had happened. But the referee says, well, I wasn't given a slip.
Yeah.
You know? So then he had to take the boy back off. So I think the boy just walked on. This was in a Division 2 match. I think it was St. Patrick.
Yes.
But I think that's not fair. And the referee has so much to think about now.
He must have about 10 watches on him.
I know.
It's hopefully all teething problems as well. I must say that the standard of the refereeing so far in our matches have been top class. And there has been a couple of sin bins and that there, but they seem to have managed it perfectly. So whatever way that they're getting their trainings, it's going well. Marcus, RGU against St John's. RGU obviously went to Breda, got a draw. They didn't have this their own way at all. Like they had to come from behind, and I think only for Conor McGrady stepping up the plate, they were staring defeat in the face there.
I think there was a few our injured players not went to that game. They were just texting in saying St John's are winning. I think St John's were 3 up at half time. And with 10 minutes to go, the fella that I was speaking to actually fancied St John's to kick on and win.
Mm-hmm.
I think McGrady definitely was the difference the last 10. And they also brought on Jolly Brannigan, I think. And them two took a couple of marks actually at key times, and I think there was a mistake for a goal I heard for RGU, and then they dominated the last 10.
Yeah.
But they'll be happy to get a win under the belt anyway. That's a game they have to win, as they look to go into Senior Championship.
Yeah. How much of a blow is it for no promotion for RG as well, Marcus?
I don't know. If it's the same team they had last year, it's definitely a blow because they would see themselves as a Division 1 team. If they're going to bring new players in, there was a few, like I seen their photo on Twitter the other night. There was a few boys I didn't recognise.
Mm-hmm.
So if this is a year for rebuilding, it's good.
Yeah.
But if it's the same team as they had last year, obviously them and Castlewellan would have been looking to go straight back. You know.
Peter Turley was saying he's delighted that the new pitch is open and he gets to run up and down it for 60 minutes. So,
well, did I hear that Peter Turley scored a goal the other night?
It must have hit off his head or something, because that must have been the scrappy goal you were talking about. Myles, there's a young fella from St John's that I've heard great reports about, Gilmore as well. He's meant to be like a real talent.
He's a very good footballer. He's very, very pacey. I saw him a couple of times last year, and I'd heard good reports about him at the minor level. And then I watched Annaclone and St John's in the Intermediate Championship in Tullylish last year, and he was very good. You know, I think he scored 2 or scored 1 and set up 1, and got a couple of points. And he's incredibly fast, and he's a clever footballer. And you know, obviously he's at St Coleman's, and that's probably benefited him as well. But yeah, he's a quick footballer. He missed a penalty, I think, against Annaclone the week before, and I'm not sure where they're playing him. You know, there's only one place I would play him. They're maybe trying to get him more involved in the game and bring him out a little bit, maybe. But he's a very, very good footballer. You know, he is, and he's an intelligent footballer, and you know, he's not really afraid to pull out of anything. You know, he throw himself about a bit. You know,
no, Marcus. You know, I think he is playing right up top for St John's. St John's have a certain way of setting up. Everyone knows their role, and I think that they're, you know, as Myles says, young Gilmore can win his own ball and, you know, take his own score.
If you can, you can put it into space. You know, he's quick enough to get it. Very good turn. Seems to beat the defender on the turn if the defender's tight, and then he'll cut back onto his left, and basically if he shoots, it's going over at the minute. I heard everything he hit the other night went over. Obviously the McCrory Cup run will have benefited him. I think they play him full forward, so you know, you don't play full forward in the McCrory team if you're not a good player and you can't win your own ball.
He's bad for confidence too. He's very confident on the ball. He's not shy. You know, when I first watched him last year, it's like he'd been in that St John's team for 2 or 3 years. You know, he felt completely at home playing senior football.
Is this only his second year then playing senior football? He's only coming in. You know, that bodes well for the county as well. And I suppose, like, he's learning from one of the best left foots in Ireland at a time, Marty Clark. So he can't say he's not being taught well anyway.
No, and
well, I think so.
Go on ahead, Marcus. Go on ahead.
Sorry, Myles. I think St John's are playing 2 up, I think, at the minute.
Yeah.
That was what I heard the other night. And like, he's only 18, and so if he's one of them, I'm not sure who the other one is, but you know, that is a big responsibility on him and that other fella. But they obviously trust him. You know, Marty Clark knows what he's doing, and I'm sure they're working to their game plan still. You know.
How did you find playing against them? I think it's Marty Keane, the other man up front with them. You know, they seem to be big and physical around the middle. You've got John at centre half, and then, you know, I think Danny McKay was in the midfield the other night, and Chris came on. But you know, how difficult is it to play against a team that is well drilled like that?
It's very hard to win your own kick out, because they seem to just put a line of big men across your own fifth, and to make sure that you can't go short. So you have to kick long, and then they'll win most of them because they are a big team. In general, play everybody back in and everybody working hard, and it is hard to play against. It's probably something that we struggled against, was breaking them down. and you're never. They're always going to be in the game, because of that. And then they do have lads who can shoot. Personally, I would like to see them. They have some really good forwards. I think they should keep probably 4 up, but just from playing against them. But that's probably I'd probably prefer to play against them that way. And, so Marty knows what he's doing,
Yeah. Myles, is St John's, they've been touted as possible winners of the intermediate. Do you see how they can kick on and become real contenders then?
Well, the favourites tag is a curse. Mm-hmm. Everybody would tell you that. So I would make St John's out and out favourites for the intermediate championship because we have them in the first round. But they're the sort of club, every year you're looking at teams for the intermediate championship and you'd ring 2 or 3, and St John's will be one of them. Whether it's an outsider or a favourite, I'd always ring them as a team because I find with St John's when they're very good, they're very good. They Margaret said they can play very direct football when they want, and Francie will have them into a system. And I watched them last year against Clone, and I mean they won that game. I think they gave it was 2 or 3 points in the end, but they were very, very comfortable, very pacey. And then maybe sat back towards the end of the game. The job was nearly done, and Clone kicked on a wee bit and got close. But last year I was surprised that they didn't get semi-final. I really thought they were, again, their league form was maybe a little bit indifferent. Championship was a different kind of distraction. And I was surprised that they didn't just kick on and give it a rattle, Mm-hmm. I really was. And again, looking at the draws this year, they'll look at Dromara and think, right, we have Dromara maybe looking at games further on ahead, and it's a tough game for us, there's no doubt it's a tough game for us, but we showed last year, we took Clone to 2 points, when Clone had just come down from Division 2, we drew a Ballymart and drew a Bambridge, so, on our day we're capable of competing with St John's, there's no doubt, but they'll be looking at that draw, and I don't think they'll fear too many clubs in it. I don't think Francie and the team there will fear too many of them, and I generally think they'll give it a run.
Yeah, well, that's Division 2. Obviously, Saul and Clone were playing in the bye game, Saul winning by 4 points, but as Marcus said, there's no such thing as a friendly. It was good hard game, and Benny McCardle showed why he's still playing for the county. He's carries the ball well for Clone, and Big Kevin Anderson, Guy McCardle, still the same boys are doing the stuff for Clone. So good to see there as well.
I heard Benny was very good, which augurs well for Paddy Tally. But how did you find the bye game, John? I know Marcus said they found it very good, but that was his first game of the season, so they were going to be bouncing to get out. How did you find it, bearing in mind you played a competitive game, now you're into a game that effectively means nothing, and then back to a competitive game next?
You see, like for us, with no promotion or anything like that, there, it's just about getting especially me coming in as a new coach as well, and the team, you're just trying to get their key points across, so that each week then you're improving every week, and Ronan's McCartan's very good, level-headed that way. You're trying to just improve, like for 30 minutes, then the next week 40 minutes. So it was like you could see two teams that were trying to implement stuff. And especially two teams playing in the intermediate as well. Surprised that the county board actually fixed that game for that. I think there was talk they were trying to keep teams apart, but no, it was like the weather didn't suit both teams, but it was a good entertaining game of football with two teams just went at it, like so. The hard thing is with the bye game in the middle, do you keep the same team taking over? Do you change the team up? Do you that seems to be the issue, but it's just how teams are fixed for that week and moving forward. Like I think. There's no bye teams in Division 3, Division 4. Is that right, Myles?
No, there's not. No, it's straight. Last year we found, in the league last year, you had a bye, you had a week where you had no football. Mm-hmm. And I hated it. I would rather be playing boom, 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 football every week, and then all of a sudden you have a bye, and ours was the very last of the season, or second last. So we actually went. I think we went 4 weeks out playing football.
Yeah.
And then we played Anaclone, and then we played the relegation playoff, and that didn't do us any favors because we had our Lion week, and then there was a couple of games cancelled. So we had 4 weeks off towards the end of the year, which we didn't need. We needed to be playing football every year. But that bye game, rather than not play a game, I think it's a far better way of doing it.
I do, yes. Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree.
It keeps you competitive. Definitely does.
Marcus, you play on Monday night, the rescheduled game. You know, I'm sure you're delighted that it's so soon as well. That, you know, it's not put back to the end of the after championship.
Well, there was talk of it being on the 7th of August. You know, there's 2 weeks after the league game this Friday.
Yeah.
But as soon as it came, we were given the choice basically, and we wanted it as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Because we haven't had a game in so long. We'll play a game, then you don't want to wait about, and it is a bit of a disappointment for the lads when games are called off.
Yeah.
Also, we want to play Longstone. You know.
Yeah.
After their first match, you can see that they picked up a bit from last year, and probably flying with Benny there as well. So in terms of for looking ahead, the Ballyhold playing Longstone in Darragh is a tremendous match for us.
So Longstone,
now, sorry, John.
The Longstone had a good win against Castlewell, and it's good that the two are in the senior championship. So it sort of gauges where you are at as well, Marcus.
Well, we couldn't ask for 3 better games. We got Anric, who are used to playing senior championship. We've Longstone, who are a senior championship team, and then we've Glen on Friday night. So, and they're a senior championship. So we couldn't ask for 3 better games to prepare us, you know.
No, very good.
Longstone seem to have rejuvenated anyway. The Ambrose and Mark, I think, going well, and they've Connor Dorn and go forward back from London.
Yeah, I think Connor Dorn's added another dimension for them as well, because he can kick long scores as well. Like, he's great left foot on him. You know, he's even for London, he was performing well, and I think Connor Poland scored big from midfield as well from against Castlewell. So, you know, I'm really looking forward to seeing how that match goes.
Yeah, I heard he got a couple of goals from midfield. I think just coming through on the end of things. So, something we'll have to watch out for, I suppose.
Yeah.
Any team coached by Benny is going to be hard to play against, because, you know, I was involved with the development squads with him, and boys just want to play football for him. You know, you saw what he did with Mayo Bridge. Mayo Bridge weren't going too well. Benny comes in, and all of a sudden, you know, they're busting themselves and they're pacey, and you know, I find that Benny's very attack-minded. You know, he plays from that generation where, you know, you go out to win games. You don't drop men and hope you don't get beat. You know, all the time the development squads, he was just preaching attack. You know, he's encouraging boys to run with the ball, and none of this dropping men behind. He was very good coaching the forward boys and movement, and you saw what he did with the Bridge, and again the Longstone boys will play for him. He's very infectious, you know, and you know, with a lot of managers, you know yourself, John, you know, you tell boys to do things and they walk away and go, what does he know? You can't say that about Benny. You know, you don't look at Benny Coder and go, what does Benny know? You know.
Wait, can they say that about me, Myles? Is that what you're saying? Thanks very much.
I hear it a lot. A lot of boys say it to me before I tell them. But, you know, Benny knows what he's doing, and those guys will hang. I just found the young fellas at the development squads, and I've seen them do different coaching things, a bit like Conor Laverty, they'll hang on his every word. They're not turning off. They're not letting the mind wander. You know, I find with Benny, you know, if he tells a boy to go and stand in that corner of the field and don't move for an hour, they'll go and do it, because they totally believe in what he's telling them is gospel. You know, there's no questioning. You know, and he's also learning. Benny will always ask the players. He'll always get the feedback from the players, and he's very good at man management. You know, he's you know.
No, I think Benny and Longstone is a good fit, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Longstone like playing football, natural football, and that's what Benny likes doing. So they'll want to kick it into their forwards and things like that, you know.
Mark, it's just as I don't mean to bring up your age or anything like that, but you're in your twilight of your career, let's just say. How bringing on the Dara Cross boys, the forwards, and that, are you telling them during games or trainings, make this move, make this run, this is why you're doing this?
In training, I would sort of have a wee word with some of them, or basically get their opinion on, what would you like, how would you like the ball coming into you, and you are trying to bring lads on who probably aren't used to, certain like diagonal runs.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of our lads with just from underage, you get the ball straight out in front of you and you make a straight run. So like you do it quietly, John. You sort of have a wee quiet word. Like if you run in behind, go that way and then the next way, and run in behind him. You can get the ball to the side of a person as well, or in behind. So yes, there would be a wee bit of that. But I would get on well with all our lads, John, on a personal level.
Yes.
So it's always sort of done like that. And if they do something well in a match, you'll say to them, here, that wee thing worked, or keep doing what you're doing, or try this, and it's all done that way. I wouldn't ever be disrespectful to a player or anything like that. It's sort of a two-way thing,
Mm-hmm.
But I've coached a lot of our sort of players that I'm now playing with, so we do have sort of a good enough relationship where we can speak about things, like that.
Yeah. And has your game changed, Marcus, in the last few years as well? Just with with your role in the team.
Well, I suppose, like I was saying about Donny Kennedy earlier, you don't want to get into a race with certain players. Like I wouldn't be making probably as many runs as I used to. It's probably using a wee bit of cuteness, use your body a bit more, nudging players, going and maybe getting a wee hand pass, rather than looking to receive a kick pass. It's always harder to receive a kick pass than it is to receive a hand pass.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, try and use things, John. If I haven't touched the ball in a while, just go and get a wee hand pass off somebody. Yeah. I'm certainly not running as much as I used to, John. Put it that way.
Yeah. Well, you had a bad illness there a couple of years ago as well. How did that come about, and your recuperation then as well?
Yeah, well, I think I was eating too much in Portugal, John. I'm not sure what it was. There was some sort of seafood got the blame for it anyway.
Right.
But I got basically arthritis out of it, and I was actually in a wheelchair for a while when I got certain injections. But I missed the second half of the season. I came back, and we were meant to play Seoul, and then I got sick, and that was me for the season gone. Liam Hardy was manager then. So that was a wild time. Like I had to take time off work and all, and just wasn't sure if I was going to be playing football again. But I was okay for the next pre-season, but that was the hardest pre-season I ever did. Like you were at the back of the runs, and you were way off. Like it probably took a whole season nearly to get rid of that, John. But wild disease, like it was bad, but thankfully it's gone now.
Yeah, mentally as well, Marcus. I'm sure it was tough for yourself. Playing, being the main man for Darragh Cross for so many years. Playing county football as well. How did was the club and your friends just great support for you, family?
They were like Tom and my uncle. He became the manager, and we were involved in a relegation battle there. And he brought me in, as I was sort of helping with. I was taking stats and things. So I wanted to help out that way. As we thought we were going to get relegated. But the boys were brilliant actually under Tom McMahon, and we stayed up that year. And then over that pre-season, John, or over the off-season, I was just always thinking about getting back and trying to do as much as I could, to get back. So in the gym and stuff like that. But I never thought about not playing again. You know, I knew I was going to come back, but I was just glad Dara stayed up that year and then hit the next season running. You know,
with the county as well, Marcus. You know, you as I said, you've been Darragh Cross main man for so many years. Do you think you should have played more years for the county or got a call up sooner?
No, I wouldn't say so, John. Looking back on it, if you take, say, when Ross Carr was manager, I probably wasn't doing enough. Do you know what I mean? And then sort of their one that year with James, like downward Division 1 team then, you know, and you had some serious competition to get into the forward line. And then after that year, I went to London, so that was sort of the end of down. But no, I would always say that I probably wasn't doing enough to, you know, get more time with down, John. Just looking back on it, I probably thought at the time I was doing enough.
Yeah.
But, you know, looking back on various forwards in the noughties and like 2010, you know, like who do you leave out there, like, you know?
Myles, Dara Cross, great tradition of good footballers as well. You know, and as everyone always says, it's a difficult place to go and win. I remember going down there for Strava, and we were just down in Division 2, and honestly, I think we took them for a wee bit for granted, like we took the eye off the ball. You know, we fairly got the shock whenever we were leaving. I think we got beat by 10 points.
Well, we went down a couple of times, Justy and myself. We went down to Darragh Cross, and look, we always found them to be a very good footballing team. You know, nearly footballing purists. You know, they were very, very high skill set, and very difficult. You know, again, relentless at you. You know, with very, very high work rate. And I saw Marcus score a goal. I think it was last year, the year before, against Anaclone in Darragh Cross, where the ball went way out, and it looked like the ball was going dead, way out to the right wing, and all the Anaclone boys stopped, and Marcus nearly sauntered over, and everybody thought the ball's going out and he's going to go and get it, throw it back to the goalkeeper, and he picked the ball up and danced in around two players and stuck it in the back of the net. And I would nearly disagree. I felt at that time in 2010 that Marcus probably deserved a little bit more time with the county, you know, and maybe his style of football didn't suit James's style of football. But, you know, and I'm not saying it because he's here, but there's very few footballers in the county that are very, very clever footballers. Mark Poland is a very clever footballer. Marcus Miskelly was a very clever footballer. You know, we were always, when we were managing Anaclone, we played Darragh Cross. You were worried when Marcus got the ball because things were going to happen. You know, not necessarily he was going to do anything wonderful, like hit a 40-yard pass, but you just knew, and you touched on it, Marcus, if you weren't getting the ball, you come out looking for it. And that's what we didn't want. Because Marcus coming out looking for the ball was then in a position where he was controlling things around him, and we didn't want him out there. We wanted him back in where we could keep an eye on him and maybe put a man in front of him. And we found that a couple of times. We nearly thought it was part of Dara Cross's strategy, is don't give Marcus the ball for 10 minutes and then he's going to come out and get himself into the game. You know,
that's good advice for young players as well. You know, you know, if you are finding yourself that you're not, the game is bypassing you, get yourself somewhere where you can get influence the game. Even as Marcus said, we hand pass here and there, just get the feel of the ball. Then you know, you get into the rhythm of the game.
Get your confidence levels back up, you know, and look, modern football is full of robots, boys that just want to get the ball, run off, back, go again, and you're lacking the guys that have the mental ability to control a game and take a step back. Like I say, Mark Poland could do it, and those style of footballers are slowly dying out. You know, it's a real shame.
We're going to get Marcus back on this county panel. Make sure Paddy's watching this. Boys, that's Division 2. Division 1 then, I suppose that it was the game of the weekend with the two championship finalists from last year, Kilcoo edging out Warren Point. And I suppose the takeaway point from this, Marcus, was Alan Davidson came back and scored 1-1, back from injury, and it's great to see that he's given it another go.
Yeah, very dangerous player. Played against him a lot when he was for Breda.
Yeah,
and very, very direct. Someone, you know, who can get a goal out of nothing and is almost just relies on his wits nearly. So that I'd say Warren Point missed him last year.
Yeah.
Physically strong as well. Can shrug a man off. So, you know, he'll add something to their forward line, whether they start him or bring him on. I've been to a Warren Point game once and I brought him on. He had a big impact. I think it was Championship against Glen a couple of years ago. So they'll want him going well as well. And I'm sure they're building now for Championship. I forget who they play, John.
Who? Sorry.
Burn.
Yeah.
Burn.
Yeah.
They play Burn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, you know, that's a good tight game in Kilcoo. So that's good preparation for them.
Yeah.
You know.
I believe there was a bit of confusion with the water breaks, just as you were saying that earlier, boys. I think Warren Point nearly scored a goal from I think Bobo was standing out of his nets and had a sprint back, but it shows you that it could even happen at the top level. So, but by all accounts, it was a cagey affair, and you know, I think Warren Point had at most of the ball, and Kilcoo hung in there, and you know, they brought on the boys to do the scoring. It just shows you how important, you know, having them players in, Marcus, as well. You know, a big squad and you know, experienced players coming on the pitch as well.
Well, the likes of those two having played each other in the county final last year, you know, there is going to be an element of shadow boxing.
Mm-hmm.
Because they'll see each other as, right, we could be playing each other here down the line in a Championship semi-final or a final. So, but again, Kilcoo, when it gets to that stage of the game, Kilcoo want to win the game, you know, and no matter what, they'll get that game won, with no matter who does to bring on or who does to take off.
Mm-hmm.
I would say there's still a few positions up for grabs on both teams. You know, they probably know 13 of their 15, 12 of their 15, but there's still a couple of positions up for grabs. So them boys who know they're not 100% in yet, they're going to be playing like a championship at the minute.
Yeah.
You know, so
Myles,
good preparation for both.
Exactly. Myles, how much of a luxury would it be to bring on the likes of Drone Johnson, Conor Lavery?
It's unreal, isn't it? You're bringing on. I mean, you're talking about in-house games. I mean, in-house games in Kilcoo, you'd pay to watch.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you'd go and watch them. And it's a strange one for Kilcoo because in previous years, at the start of the league, Kilcoo aren't known for coming out of the box flying. You know, I think they've lost their first league game, you know, 3 times the last 4. I know when in Anaclone we played them in their first league game, Paul McGyver's first year, and beat them. You know, they're not used to coming out. They sort of slowly build, and then bang, in June and July they're up to full speed. So it's kind of funny for them. It's the start of the league where they want to get the ball rolling, but they've only 3 weeks to Championship. And Mickey Morin has shown, you know, no place is safe, because if you look at the team that took defeat in the All-Ireland, you know, there was 4 or 5 boys that weren't near the starting team at the start of the year. So I think, yes, they're conscious, even the most settled players, and Aaron Brannigan, Conor Laverty, you know, with Jerome Johnson, looking over their shoulders, and Mickey's not afraid to pull you in the big numbers. Are they favourites for the Championship? I don't know. I don't know, because had the league started in March and April, those guys, I feel, would have been tired, mentally and physically tired, coming straight from an All-Ireland final, 4 or 5 weeks, and then back into it. They've had a massive break now. Mentally, probably not a bad thing, but 2, I think Kilcoo like to keep playing football and just keep that momentum going in some shape, just even playing football. But yeah, you know, Warren Point weren't far away. They'll be building, again, very, very pacey team. We mentioned Davidson. You know, they have the fact that Marcus touched on it. They could keep Davidson on the bench and bring him on. You know, they still have that quality up front, that he's not guaranteed his place. Whereas in a lot of those other Division 1 teams, he would walk on. So Warren point of strength and depth. They got to a county final. They'd be looking to try and get there again and kick on. And I feel the intermediate and the senior championship is not a done deal. I think it's open.
Well, I know Ross McGarry didn't start for the point as well. So, as you said, Mark, it's shadow boxing, and it's is it just like games they got there? Is it just about trying to get coaching points, like a sort of rhythm to your play?
I would say there's probably, as I said earlier, there's a few positions up for grabs, and they'll be looking to see can they add something to their team from last year.
Mm-hmm.
Like Kilcoo there, like you take the coaching expertise that they have, and even some of the players are very prominent coaches. I'd be surprised if they don't have something different. Like particularly with the advanced mark. What some in the game where they can maybe put forward, like Kilcoo didn't have that last year, but or something at some stage.
Yes.
Likes of a midfielder going into full forward for 5 or 10 minutes, or a call being made and it's just happening. Like Kilcoo will bring something different. This year again, they'll not want teams working them out.
No, exactly. And Myles, the two teams then that are looking to chase them, I suppose, and to get over and to join them at the top tables are Strava and Clundoff. A big high scoring game. Clundoff came out on top there, but I believe Strava played well, and just for costly mistakes let Clundoff back into the game. Yeah,
for me, Strava conceded 3 goals against the Bridge the week before, and 3 goals again against Clundoff, and whacking up 16, 17 points is enough to win you a game. 16, 17 scores. So just looking at that, is there little lapses in concentration? I know Pete not be happy with that, conceding goals. But Clundoff, they got off to a good win against Kilcoo. They're obviously well fired up, scoring 3 goals. And again, I always find Strava a very, very good pacey team. Always, nearly every time they went up the field, got a score. So that they're still showing that. They're getting up score. It's just maybe that defensive mindset is they're letting teams in, 3 against the Bridge, 3 against Clundoff. I have a wee sneaky feeling about Clundoff this year. I think they'll be tough to beat. Yeah. I really do think. I think in the championship, that's a cracking game in the championship, them and Carryduff. And I fancy the winners of that game is going to be in the last 4. That's my personal feeling. I think they're going to be thereabouts. They might win. Clundoff or Carryduff might win a championship, but they'll have a massive say in who does. Yes. Marcus, with Strava, they don't seem to have the balance right. Last year, they were a bit too defensive, and I don't think they scored too heavily in the championship. This year, they've seemed they're hitting the big scores, but they're conceding goals. How are they going to get this balance right? Do you think?
I would say they'll just go back to the training ground and maybe they'll try something different for their next game. But they'll have recognised that they've scored highly, but haven't. We've conceded 4 goals in the 2 games? No, 5 goals.
6 goals.
6, right? So I would say they'll definitely look to address that. Whether I don't know how they're playing, John. Are they playing a sweeper or?
No, I think they have abandoned the sweeper system. So
okay,
which is allowing them to score. What?
Well, maybe deploy 1 sweeper. I don't know, but they'll recognise that you can't concede 3 goals every game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Maybe they'll have a midfielder sitting more. I don't know. They'll do something.
Yeah.
But they'll recognise too that here we're scoring freely. So they'll probably tweak something. Have they got Connor Doyle and Pierce? Is it Pierce Kane?
Yeah.
Them 2 playing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember them 2 just from playing against Strava. Yeah. I thought they were 2 good-looking footballers.
Yeah. They're going well now. I think Connor's back over after an injury. Boys, I think they're about 23, 24 now. I think so. It's about time. Yeah, about time the boys did.
They're not missing too many, are they, John? They're not.
Well, Keelan Mooney went off injured there with about in the first 15 minutes, so that's a worry.
Right.
So it's Clundoff and Strava are very, very similar. They've always the sort of same paths the last couple of years, like.
Yeah.
Always a good high scoring game between those two.
Yeah. So they're probably all taking bets on it whenever they meet each other after the game or something like that there. But boys, 1B then. Marcus, Burn against Ballyhold. Just played Ballyhold in the Championship. A real seasoned Division 1 team now. You've got Justy Lynch, you've got the manager Damien Crank, and Tommy Stevenson, who was he's in as coach as well. Ballyhold, they get a bad rap sometimes for the style of play, but Ballyhold are actually good footballers who give their all. And if it's a system of play that suits them, so be it. But like I've seen Ballyhold score big scores as well. Burn beat them by a point in this one, but again, it was bad conditions. It could have led to it. So, do you have your hands full with Ballyhold?
Okay, now we haven't been down to watch them or anything like that, but we got the semi-final last year. Season Division 1 team, as you say. We're just sort of worrying about ourselves, John, at the minute. But I suppose we would know a few of the carried off ones. They just said that they're a very physical team. Not overly defensive. They weren't overly defensive against carried off. Now they might have changed something because carried off beat them.
Yeah.
And because they were playing Burn. But we're just concentrating on ourselves, as I say, John, for that championship game. We just want to go out and express ourselves and play. And we've played against enough teams that have come out of Division 1. So we're not overly worried about playing a Division 1 team.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't know a lot of the footballers. I know the Murphys, Ronan Murda, I know a lot of the footballers. I know the names, Tiernan Rush and Seamus Loughlin. He's a very good free taker from what I hear. So we'll probably mention that. But we got to attack them. We've seen Cardiff beat them the other year in the championship when they were Division 2 side. So you have to attack these teams. I think if you worry too much about them, if you think too much about the opposition, you're not going to play to your potential.
Yeah.
So we'll not even get a look at them before that match. We'll just probably go out and play it.
Yeah. Burn going along nicely, Myles. This is always nip and tuck between Burn and Ballyhold. But Burn had a strong team out as well with Jeremy McGovern back in full back.
Yeah, look, they had a strong team out, and I believe they had a very strong team out in their seconds game yesterday, and I watched them play their thirds play Clone this afternoon, and they had a very strong team out there. You're looking at those boys, and their thirds team are physically fit. They're obviously doing a good pre-season weights program, and you're looking even that thirds team today. There's boys playing for senior places, so they are going to regroup. And they've all, like you say, they've key men back. And Ballyhold, Justy wouldn't be afraid of a Burn. That doesn't annoy him. He's not really worried about any team he plays. And Ballyhold, like I know Justy, fairly well. I was worked under him for 3 years in Clone, and a Justy Lynch at Championship is different to Justy Lynch in League. He's a history with Dromgath. He took Clone to an intermediate final and were beat by 4 points in a close run game with Strava. He took Ballyhold to a senior semi-final last year. So, the mindset of a Justy Lynch and his when he comes in a championship is completely different from his league. And he's very much, like I said, he'll consolidate his league position and then kick on in championship. And he changed the mindset, and there's Tommy in there, and Tommy did a bit of work with us in Clone, so they'll be physically strong. But Burn are looking like Kilcoo. They've been looking at the bigger picture. This is only stepping stones to where they want to be in 4 or 5 weeks' time. And again in the championship, they got the point, if I'm right. That's a derby game. You know, they could slip at the first hurdle and have to go through the back door. You know, so they're probably just easing some of those boys back in nice and gently, and using what I have found a couple of clubs are using the Premier reserves and their reserve league games to really try and say to boys, kick on. And there's a place here. Seems to be no places guaranteed in any teams.
No.
You know, they're prepared to chop and change. So, you know, Burn are only up and going. You know, they're not worried too much about the league. They probably learned from the way Kilcoo approached the league. Look, you know, it's a stepping stone to championship, and championships are where you're judged.
Marcus, and I suppose the last match that we'll have here is two teams that probably want to get into the top with Kilcoo, Burn, Warrenpoint, is Bambridge and Lockin Island.
Mm-hmm.
Lockin Island, you know, they've settled in Division 1 now. They'll be looking to push on. I think Stephen Mason scored the goal to equalise against Bambridge.
No, I thought Bridge equalised at the end. So that yeah. I think Lockin Island seemed to be winning that game the whole way, and we're sort of keeping Bridge. I was talking to one of the Lockin Island boys. It's very similar to the championship last year, the year before. Bridge scored a late goal to take it to extra time against Lockin Island.
Yes.
There was a defensive mix-up, and I think a ball ended up in the back of the net somehow, and that was the last kick. So it was sort of history repeating itself. But I know Dan isn't playing at the minute, and like Lockin Island going to Bridge and not losing's a good result without Dan as well, you know. So I'd say they'll be happy enough.
Lockin Island, how do you think how are they going to try and kick on, Marcus? You know, the younger lads as well, taking more responsibility, as you said, like with Dan and Stick, you know, the older statesmen there.
It's probably good for them to sort of play without Dan, but yet knowing that he is there to come back in, you know. But when obviously they're going to be a different team with that sort of quality, you know, in the team, but like they do have some great players, and they are a big team. They do have a couple of new players in who I didn't really know. But again, Lockin Island, no team. You know what you're going to get with Lockin Island. You're going to get a physical game, and you're going to get good forwards. You know, so yeah, they'll be looking to beat Longstone certainly.
Yeah. No, I seen Lockin Island last year against Strava, and like Strava just couldn't get the grips on them at all. I think like they give Strava 2 heavy defeats. Myles, like as Marcus says, they try to isolate their forwards, which who cause damage.
They do, and look, playing without Dan is, like Marcus said, look, it'll do them no harm because Dan's been the go-to man, whether it be midfield or centre half back or full back or full forward, wherever he'll turn up anywhere and do a job. So they have to learn to play without him because he'll not play forever. And it's maximising their forwards. I know, you know, a lot of the time last year they're playing Rory Mason as a wing half back, which, you know, I think Rory's best place is I'd play him further up, to be honest. I'd let him go at it. You've Johnny Flynn there. I mean, Johnny can step in now and he's a county footballer and perhaps, you know, step into Dan's shoes and try and drive the team on a bit. I fancy Lockin Island. I fancied Lockin Island last year as outsiders for the championship. You know, Jody has a history of winning championships. He knows what it takes to win championships. I think there's a myth with Jody about he's very defensive. I don't buy into that at all. You saw in the championship final last year or 2 years ago against Leitrim, everybody thought he was going to, you know, set up defensively. Husky said the same, and they just went flat out attack for 25 minutes. Just, you know, attack. And Jody knows what he's about. You know, he's been around. You know, he's in around the same age as me. And I think a second year now, he'll know what he expects of Lockin Island. You know, I think they'll be very dangerous. I actually tip them. He'll not thank me for it. He's my son's form tutor. And then Dan takes him for P. But they're not thank me for it. But, you know, I think they're very good footballers. They're quality footballers everywhere. They maximise. I think the one thing that does go against them is you know, at home they can be hard to beat on a tight pitch, even though Bourne beat them the year or the week before. And then, you know, the big pitch, maybe sometimes they get caught out. They're very, very strong on a tight pitch, but I actually fancy Lockin Island's outsiders, them and the other club we haven't talked about, Carryduff. I really think that, you know, there are a lot of young teams coming up, you know, with good management and good structures. I will say what this break has probably gone against the likes of Jody. Jody's very well organised, you know, and some managers would have had a plan from January right through to July. Justy Lynch is another one. They would have had everything mapped out. And then that goes out the window, and there's a lot of thinking on the hoof, you know, right, what are we going to do? We've only 3 games, or, you know, the games are all brought forward a week and we have a bye game. So some managers that might suit, some managers are deadly organised, and now they're having to deviate from their pre-season plan. But I do fancy Lockin Island, I really do. I think I've watched them a couple of times, and when their tails are up, I think they're hard to beat. You know,
Myles, you're tipping about 6 teams here. You're going to have to, like, at the end of the show, I'll ask for your favourites, champions and dark horses. But
right.
The Carryduff game, then it was the bye. Cahill Murray's actually in with Carryduff now as coach. DJ and right. Brought him in as a coach up there. So, you know, that'll add something different for the boys going in the championship this year, and they had a good win against Bransford as well there.
Yeah, John, that was in Bransford.
Yeah, it was, Marcus. Yeah.
That's two wins on the road, and I think they were always ahead in that game. I played against Carryduff probably most of my career, but you know, you can tell there's something different about their current team.
Right.
And they can, as I said earlier about mixing it up, they can put it in high or low to that group of forwards that they have. So they've options and they've serious pace, John, and confidence. You know, they do just go at you, and they'll not see themselves as, you know, a newly promoted Division 2 team just playing against Division 1 teams. They'll see themselves as, you know, they'll have played against all them boys the whole way up. At A football, so you know, they're where they should be, you know, probably in their eyes. Cahill Murray will be a good Cahill Murray, like, he'll bring a freshness to the setup, you know, because DJ and Paddy have been there now 3 or 4 years, so that can only be a good thing for them, you know.
No, exactly, and you know, bringing the you know, success, the Hogan success that he's had, and you know, taking that, maybe peaking at the right time as well for Carryduff. So it could be a bit of a masterstroke by DJ and Paddy getting them in. I suppose, Myles, as Marcus says, the forward line of like Owen McCabe and Breda, you know, you can play the ball in any way to them, and you've got, you know, the Guinness boys coming through as well.
They have an embarrassment of riches, really, there. You know, they have, and as Marcus says, look, they can mix it up. You know, they can go high-low, they can go ultra-defensive, or they can go man-on-man. What Paddy and DJ have done, I think, has changed the mindset of the Carryduff, because we would have come up against them several times, and you know, we played them in an intermediate quarter-final. You know, not that we didn't beat them easy, but we weren't worried about Carryduff, but they weren't the team they are now.
Yes.
You know, if you go against Carryduff, I mean, you wouldn't sleep for a week. They're pacey, and they changed the mindset. They changed the mindset of, you know, Carryduff wouldn't have travelled well and gone down a Clone and not fancied it, or gone to Dara Cross and not fancied it. And Paddy and DJ changed that. I mean, Carryduff are afraid of nobody. You know, absolutely not. You know, they've had a very good run in the under-20s. The 3 or 4 boys brought onto the county panel. That's going to be their biggest problem, is trying to keep those boys playing football for Carryduff and not diverted by the attentions that the county brings. That's going to be the big problem for them. But they've installed that belief in Carryduff that, you know, we are a big team, you know, and teams are going to be scared of us. We're not going to be scared of anybody. And if we want to play football this way, that's the way we'll go. And if we want to play it a different way, Marcus mentioned the game against Ballyhold a couple of years ago in Newcastle. You know, they looked as if they'd been playing senior championship for 3 or 4 years. You know, they were very comfortable on the ball. They were very well organised. You know, the management team has themselves, you know, they're not contradicting each other when they're shouting, instructions. You know, it's very well thought out.
Yeah.
And you know, they look very comfortable at senior level. They look very comfortable.
They seem to see when they get inside the 50, and they seem to try and work a goal. You know, they seem to recognize when there's a goal on, and they'll try and work it. That's something that I sort of picked up, and they've scored 4 goals there in the first 2 games against probably defensive enough teams. So they do have goals in them, you know.
Would that come from experience, Marcus? Whenever you're playing, you know, people say they can smell a goal, or is it just things open up because of the runners coming through?
I don't know whether it's like a higher level of player sort of. I would say it can be coached, but like, you know, Conor Laverty and Mark Poland and that, when someone broke a line there, you know, they were thinking goal. You know, so that seems to be in Cahill at the minute, and a lot of their players. You know, it's draw the man in and feed the man at the back post, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know, walk the ball into the net. Very hard to say whether that's natural or not, you know.
Yeah. No, it's definitely, you know, as you said, that minor team coming through have played consistently, getting into all county finals and that. And of course, they've no fear of the likes of Strava, Burn, Bambridge anymore, like Cuckoo. So it'll be interesting to see. Boys, I'm going to push you for your picks now for the junior, the winner of a junior championship and a dark horse. We'll go with you first, Marcus.
Winner the Finn, and dark horse Drummond.
Myles.
Yeah, I would have to agree with Marcus. The Finn, I'd like to see the Finn win it. I would really like to see them win it. You know, we played them a couple of times. They're a great team, and you know, they're great lads. You know, and really want them to kick on. Drummond or possibly an outside would be St Paul's.
Good stuff. Marcus, intermediate then. I suppose this is, you know most of the teams here, you've come up against them, so potential winners and dark horses.
Well, I said earlier it'll be on Rake or Leitrim probably winning it. I'll go for Leitrim to win it, and dark horse go Shamrocks.
Good stuff. Good shout. Myles.
I'd go St John's and Saul, and we'll leave it at that.
Who to win it?
I would say, look, I would say Leitrim would be my tip. Dark horses, you know, John Hockey will kill me for saying this, but I wouldn't write off Anaclone. I definitely wouldn't. You know, you have a lot of boys coming to the end of their career there and really going to get one more push. You know, that team's been beaten in 2 intermediate finals. Gary and Benny and Kebby and those boys. So that'd be my dark horse.
They left a lot on the table on Friday night. Their shooting just wasn't up to scratch, like, you know. So
that would be the dark horse would go on a clone.
Very good. The senior championship then. Well, you can't name Dara Cross, Marcus. So
why not?
Give us the senior and dark horse. Senior champions and dark horse.
I'll go Kilcoo to win it, and dark horse Clundoff.
Myles, this is where I only want 2 answers now, Myles.
Right. I would say Kilcoo and Carrie Duff. I get a phone call from Paddy Doherty the minute this goes out. Or either that or DJ will come to the house. But I fancy Lockin Island, but I go Carrie Duff. I just think it's in a good place. I go dark horse for Carrie Duff.
Lads, thank you so much for coming on tonight. It was great to hear from 2 men that know their football. And Marcus, great to see you're still playing, still pulling the strings for Darragh Cross. It's good to see that you're getting senior championship football, and hopefully Darragh Cross get a good run on it as well, starting with Ballyhold. So best of luck with that.
Thanks very much, John.
Myles,
Thank you.
hopefully now that we don't meet each other in the intermediate.
No,
You know, I know there was no promotion this year for you, but you know, this might be a good year for you to build on up there and, you know, get that intermediate a good rattle.
yeah, we'll give it a rattle. We're not behind one anyway.
Good
Definitely.
stuff. Good stuff, man. Thank you so much. Really enjoyed that. Best of luck, and boys, I'll be getting you on the show again if that's okay.
Not a problem. No problem.
Get on, John.
Cheers, Marcus. Thank
Thanks,
you.
John.
Cheers, Myles. Thank you.